Here is Immortal Moments for explanation. Friends, like videos and subscribes to our channel. Martial Universe Season 10 Part 66 Explanation. So let's start our explanation. Little girl, are you sure that the darkness Scythe in your hands is complete? An indifferent voice slowly drifted across the sky above the darkness square. However, it caused the hearts of countless individuals to pound violently. Following which, when the crowd turned to look at those two elderly figures, there was an additional trace of fear in their eyes. It was likely that they vaguely knew just how frightening the two of them were. Two grand elders, what are the both of you trying to say? Qingtan's pupils shrunk slightly at this moment. Promptly, while gripping onto the icy cool large black scythe with her delicate little hand, she asked in a cold voice, "Don't tell me that you think that this darkness scythe is fake." The two grand elders slowly lifted their wrinkle-filled elderly faces. Staring at Qingtan with an indifferent expression, they said nonchalantly, "The darkness scythe is indeed real. However, it is incomplete. Therefore, technically speaking, you do not possess the two great sacred objects of our darkness palace." "Oh? In that case, I want to know, why is it incomplete? When Master handed it over to me, he never once mentioned this." Qingtan laughed coldly. "Forget about you, even your teacher does not know about this." The grand elder on the left shook his head and said, "Nonsense." Qingtan's expression darkened. "In terms of status, even your master has to call the both of us martial uncles. Why would it be surprising that he doesn't know certain secrets within Darkness Palace?" The two elders ridiculed. The Darkness Scythe was divided into two parts ever since the ancient times: the body of the scythe and the spirit of the scythe. Currently, the darkness scythe in your hand does not possess a scythe spirit. Therefore, how can it be considered as a complete sacred object? Qingtan's pretty face turned icy cold upon hearing this. Then, she said, "Nonsense. Although the both of you have a high status in my darkness palace, the both of you can still be punished for humiliating the sacred objects. Such arrogance. Even if your master is around, he wouldn't dare to do anything to the both of us. Girl, you really lack manners. It's no wonder so many elders are against you." The two grand elders' expression sunk before they chuckled. The first owner of the darkness scythe was the darkness master. However, this divine object took serious damage during the ancient war and the scythe spirit was destroyed. Finally, it landed in the hands of the first palace master of our darkness palace. He used his entire life before he finally came up with a way to repair it. Just before he died, he sacrificed himself and once again created a scythe spirit. Only then was the darkness scythe completed. However, due to some unexpected events, the scythe spirit disappeared for no reason. Technically speaking, this should be blamed on your master. However, on account of the fact that he has made great contributions to Darkness Palace, the both of us did not speak up. Nevertheless, we cannot allow this mistake to continue. Qingtan gripped the darkness scythe in her hand tightly, while murderous desire was glimmering deep within her eyes. "Grand elders, we have never heard of such a thing. It is hardly convincing." The two black-robed elders replied in a deep voice. They were elders from Darkness Judgment Hall and they were loyal to the head judge. Therefore, they were on opposing standpoints with the Elder Council. It's not difficult to prove that the darkness scythe is incomplete. However, I wonder if that little lass has the guts to try. One of the grand elders said in a faint voice. A cold chill was flowing within Qingtan's eyes. Currently, did she have any other choice? Therefore, she clenched her silver teeth before she said, "In that case, please tell me the way." "The item that will be used to judge shall be the ancestral tablet. Everyone should be aware that the ancestral tablet possessed the aura left behind by the first palace master. Moreover, the spirit of the darkness scythe was created from the death of the first palace master. You can use the darkness scythe to cut the ancestral tablet. If the darkness scythe is complete, it will definitely leave a mark on the ancestral tablet. Otherwise, it will be completely useless." The grand elders gave an indifferent smile before they said, "Although this act will offend our ancestors, I believe that our ancestors will not falter since this is all for the sake of Darkness Palace. What do you say? Do you dare to try?" Countless pairs of eyes shot towards Qingtan, who was above the altar. They were all waiting for her reply. "Palace Master, don't fall for their trap," the two black-robed elders quickly said. Qingtan shut her eyes before she gently shook her head and said, "Right now, do we have any other choice?" The two black-robed elders were quiet. After those two grand elders showed up, they no longer had much of an advantage within Darkness Palace. Moreover, if they refused, it would only give the Elder Council an excuse. "All right, I will do as the grand elders say." Qingtan suddenly opened her eyes, before a decisive glint flashed across her eyes. Promptly, with her small hand holding onto the darkness-sent scythe, her delicate figure moved before she directly appeared in front of the ancestral tablet. After which, she let out a delicate roar before her scythe cut through the empty space and hacked against the ancestral stone with lightning-like speed. Clang! A clear metallic sound appeared in the square. After which, countless pairs of eyes turned to stare at the ancestral tablet. Following which, their pupils all shrunk. This was because they saw that on the spot where the scythe had landed, there wasn't a mark on the ancestral tablet. Uproar! A commotion suddenly erupted in this place. Qingtan leaped backwards. As she stared at the smooth, untouched ancestral tablet, a slight paleness appeared on her pretty face. Meanwhile, she was biting her lips while a trace of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. "Little girl, what more do you have to say?" The two grand elders smiled faintly before they said. Qingtan suppressed the surging emotions in her heart. She rotated her eyes before she calmed down and said, "It seems like the grand elders are indeed speaking the truth. The darkness-sent scythe is indeed incomplete." The grand elders rejoiced upon hearing this. However, even before they could use this opportunity to speak, Qingtan continued, "From today onwards, finding the spirit of the scythe shall be my duty. I'm afraid that Master will be unable to rest in peace if I cannot find it. Humph, this girl really knows how to strike while the iron is hot." The first elder felt secretly outraged as he snorted quietly. He did not expect that Qingtan had managed to turn this incident into an insignificant one in the blink of an eye. Finding the scythe spirit shall also be the duty of our Darkness Palace. However, as of now, you have not obtained the two great sacred objects, and the position of Palace Master cannot be considered as yours. The two grand elders had an indifferent expression as they pressed on. Qingtan's eyes gradually turned icy while the ancient symbol between her brows became increasingly clear. In fact, the entire place seemed to have darkened even further as she said, "Grand elders, do you guys know if the darkness ancestral symbol in my possession is complete?" She had begun to reveal the icy-cold murderous intent within her words. Evidently, those two grand elders have went overboard and their actions have made her furious. When those two grand elders felt the ancient ripple reverberating across the sky, their bodies tensed up before a cold expression flashed across their eyes. Then, they said, "Are you planning to rely on the darkness ancestral symbol to suppress the both of us?" The darkness ancestral symbol is the real sacred object of the Palace Master. Grand elders, I respect the both of you and that is the reason why I have consistently given in. However, if the both of you continue to press on, perhaps I can only invite the darkness ancestral symbol to clean up our palace. Qingtan's icy cold voice was filled with bloodlust as it spread. Currently, she was forced to show her tougher side. The two grand elders leaned forward. Then, two frightening auras slowly spread from them and they actually forcefully blocked the fluctuation from the darkness ancestral symbol. The atmosphere of this place quickly became tensed, and it felt as though a fight could break out at any moment. "Ha ha, your master has indeed found quite a capable disciple," one of the grand elders suddenly laughed after the atmosphere tensed up. Then, his eyes were gently glimmering as he said, "Actually, it's possible for us to support you to become the next Palace Master. However, we hope that you can agree to one condition." Without a change in her expression, Qingtan's tensed body also relaxed slightly. Those two old fellows, who refused to die, were frighteningly powerful. Therefore, in a real fight, it was likely that she would have difficulties gaining the upper hand even though she possessed the darkness ancestral symbol. Therefore, breaking all ties and fighting with them was clearly the last resort. "Grand elders, please feel free to speak." A thought flashed across Qingtan's mind before she said in a faint voice, "It's nothing much, I have a martial grandson who is extremely fond of you. If you marry him, the both of us will not object to you becoming the palace master." The Grand Elder smiled before he promptly waved his hand. Then, a handsome man dressed in black clothes subsequently walked out from within the Elder Council. With excitement in his eyes, he stared at Qingtan before he sincerely said, "Qingtan, you should know how much I like you. If you marry me, our ancestors will definitely not stop you from becoming the palace master." Grand Elder, the first elder was stunned upon seeing this scene, as he hurriedly cried out in a low voice. The two Grand Elders waved their hands. Their eyes were glimmering and no one knew what they were up to. The entire darkness square descended into complete silence, as countless people looked at Qingtan, who was above the altar. After all, the situation had completely exceeded everyone's expectations and no one knew whether Qingtan would agree to the marriage for the sake of the position of palace master. Standing above the altar, Qingtan's small hand was tightly holding onto the darkness-sent scythe. Meanwhile, a tiny vein was protruding on her fair and delicate hand, while her delicate figure was trembling. A long while later, she inhaled a deep breath. Following which, fury and bloodlust gushed into her eyes. "Judgment Army, where are you?" "Here." A low and orderly roar suddenly erupted from around the altar. Immediately, tens of thousands of black-clothed figures stood up. "There are traitors forcing the palace master to give up her position in order to snatch the position for themselves. They have broken the rules of the palace. How should they be punished? By death." An united cry, which was accompanied by monstrous murderous intent, spread across the entire square. "How dare you!" The two Grand Elders' expressions changed drastically, as they stood up and cried out sternly. "Since the both of you refuse to back down, today, I want to see whether my darkness ancestral symbol can punish the both of you." Qingtan also replied with a stern cry. Following which, she clenched her hand before black light suddenly swept out from within her body. Immediately, the entire place turned pitch dark. "You darned girl. It seems like you truly do not know your own limits. Since the both of us dare to show ourselves, do you really think that your darkness ancestral symbol can suppress us?" The two Grand Elders chuckled. Soon after, the both of them moved before they directly appeared in midair. After which, they formed a strange seal with both their hands, before two rays of light shot directly towards the ancestral tablet. "Us descendants are unfilial. We hope that the ancestor soul can suppress the ancestral symbol." The two Grand Elders cried out in unison. After which, the ancestral tablet began to buzz and shake. Soon after, a black light shot towards the sky. Immediately, Qingtan's beautiful face became slightly pale. This was because she realized that the darkness ancestral symbol within her body was being suppressed. Ancestor soul? This unexpected development caught Qingtan by surprise. Only then did she realize why those fellows only made a move on her after the worship ceremony had begun. It turns out they had a way to use the ancestor soul within the ancestral tablet to suppress the darkness ancestral symbol. "Little girl, you want to fight with the both of us with just your puny strength? You truly don't know your limits." The two Grand Elders chuckled immediately after they saw that the darkness ancestral symbol was successfully suppressed. Then, their eyes became cold before they pressed their fingers against the air. Following which, two black rays of light filled with an intense reincarnation ripple cut through the sky and shot towards Qingtan with lightning-like speed. Up against their combined attack, Qingtan immediately felt endangered. Promptly, she clenched her teeth, tightened the grip over her darkness-sent scythe, before she readied herself to go all out to fight against them. Bang! However, a thunder resounded across the sky just as she was about to act. Everyone was stunned, before they lifted their heads and saw that the sky had unknowingly become covered with dense thunder clouds. After which, a lightning dragon, which was tens of thousands of feet in size, descended from the sky and quickly shattered the two black light rays that contained a reincarnation ripple. Subsequently, the lightning dragon roared before it ruthlessly charged towards the two Grand Elders. The two Grand Elders were startled. Their frightening auras surged as they promptly threw a palm forward, which collided head-on with the lightning dragon. Boom! Lightning sparks rained down from all directions, forcing the two Grand Elders back by more than 100 steps. Their expressions immediately changed as they cried out sternly, "Who is it?" Rumble. Another thunderbolt fell from the sky. Then it landed in front of Qingtan, whose eyes were now filled with shock. After which, that lightning slowly agglomerated before they finally transformed into a human, in front of countless pairs of shocked eyes. "Protect the palace master!" The two black-robed elders hurriedly rushed to the front of Qingtan. Meanwhile, their eyes were filled with caution as they stared at that figure. The hundreds of black figures below also moved instantly and surrounded Qingtan in the process. The lightning gradually scattered in front of everyone's eyes before a skinny young figure appeared in front of them. That figure slowly turned around after he showed up. After which, he looked at Qingtan, whose entire body had suddenly stiffened. Finally, he gave her a gentle smile. Qingtan was a little dumbstruck at this moment. In fact, she could not even maintain the grip over her darkness-sent scythe, as the scythe shook and fell onto the ground with a loud clang. She was staring in shock at that figure, before tears started to fall from her cold and large eyes. She gently pushed aside her guards and staggered forward. Then, her footsteps suddenly quickened, while the tears in her eyes crazily gushed forward, just like a broken water dam. Sob. Finally, she violently leaped onto that skinny figure. While the members of the Judgment Army were all staring at her in bewilderment, she continued to cry. In fact, she hugged that figure and continued to cry wildly. Her cries, which could break one's heart, was emitted from the altar and finally resounded throughout the sky above the square. In front of him, she was no longer the palace master of Darkness Palace. Instead, she was always going to be that little stooge who only knew how to hide behind his back. This was also why she could cry so recklessly in front of him. It was because she knew that he would endure any tantrums that she threw, and shoulder any burdens that she faced. Lin Dong looked at that girl, who was sobbing uncontrollably, before his nose involuntarily became runny. He extended his hand and tightly hugged that girl's soft body. Just like many years ago, he was still the same young man back at Qingyang Town who would always protect this little girl. "Hey! Don't cry. With Big Brother around, you will never get bullied." Qingtan's heart-wrenching cry spread from the altar and reverberated across the sky above Darkness Square. This caused countless people to be stunned, especially the experts from Darkness Judgment Hall. Ever since Qingtan entered Darkness Judgment Hall, all they had seen was a cold and almost emotionless young lady. No one knew how much blood were on her fair little hands. In a short 3 years, she had advanced from an ordinary disciple to the most authoritative position, head judge, and even the other 2 deputy heads treated her with great respect despite her youth. However, after getting used to seeing Qingtan's bloody tactics for the very first time today, they found that she also possessed such a weak side to her. She had completely lost her usual methods and charisma. Instead, she had truly become a girl who matched her age. Bewilderment filled the eyes of the elders from the Elder Council as they watched this scene. The 2 grand elders in the sky stared at the skinny figure with a dark and gloomy expression. The sound of Qingtan crying went on and on. It was as though she wanted to cry out all the hardships and grievances she had suppressed over the last 3 years. Subsequently, Lin Dong looked at his wet chest as a wave of helplessness washed over him. He rubbed the little girl's head and said, "Hey, have you still not cried enough? You do know that you are the current palace master of Darkness Palace, right?" The girl in his embrace sobbed softly. Only then did she lift her large red eyes. She looked at the matured yet familiar face, rubbed her sharp nose and said, "Big brother Lin Dong, I knew that nothing would happen to you. I am definitely fine, but I'm afraid that the same cannot be said for yourself." Lin Dong glared at her a little. His eyes contained a slight bit of ill intent. As someone who had grown up with him, Qingtan naturally knew his character like the back of her hand. She instantly understood the situation after seeing Lin Dong's appearance. Her eyes rotated as a resentful expression emerged on her small face. She hugged Lin Dong and refused to release him. "This is not going to work. I will deal with you once I resolve the trouble here." Lin Dong snorted coldly and said. Qingtan seemed to recover upon hearing this and cold light flashed across her eyes. She clenched her hand and the darkness-sent scythe flew into her hands. Soon after, she released Lin Dong. With icy eyes, she looked at the two Grand Elders in the distant sky as she said, "Big brother Lin Dong, allow me to finish them off this time." Her words had only just sounded when Lin Dong's hand violently pinched her face as he snapped, "Stand aside. You can forget about fighting when I am around." Under such indignity from Lin Dong, Qingtan's small face immediately frowned. This also caused the eyelids of the experts from Darkness Judgment Hall to twitch a little. It was likely that the impact of this scene was slightly too great. "They are very formidable," Qingtan said. These two Grand Elders were even more frightening than the three great heads of Yuan Gate. "Your brother is even more formidable." Lin Dong grinned and gently patted Qingtan's head. However, his expression gradually became cold. The overbearing actions of these two elders towards Qingtan earlier had been clearly witnessed by him. Murderous intent involuntarily surged within his heart when he thought of how this little girl had been treated by them. Other than his parents, even he could not bring himself to scold or bully her. Just who did these two wretched old fogies think they were? A sweet feeling swelled in Qingtan's heart when she saw Lin Dong's expression. After which, she nodded obediently. "May I know who this skillful friend is? Why are you intervening in the matters of our Darkness Palace?" The two Grand Elders frowned after seeing the intimate actions between Lin Dong and Qingtan and demanded in a deep voice. Lin Dong slowly turned around. His expression was indifferent as he looked at the two Grand Elders in the sky. "Did you have a good time bullying others earlier? Friend, this is an internal matter of our Darkness Palace. Qingtan is my younger sister." An intimidating blade-like smile surfaced on Lin Dong's face. The faces of the two Grand Elders turned rigid for a moment, before growing increasingly gloomy. It was unexpected that this seemingly lone little girl actually had such a powerful big brother to support her. Why had no one mentioned this before? The countless Northern Xian region experts in Darkness Square looked at each other. So the new palace master actually had such a powerful big brother. From the looks of what the two Grand Elders had treated Qingtan, it was likely that this big brother of hers would not simply let the matter rest. Even if you are her big brother, she must be held accountable to the tens of thousands of people in Darkness Palace with regards to this matter. The two Grand Elders coldly said. "Accountable?" Lin Dong seemed to laugh. Murder seemed to pour out of his eyes like a flood. "There should no longer be a need to account once I kill you two old farts, right?" Lin Dong clearly comprehended the current situation of Darkness Palace. These two old things had merely used their seniority to bully others, causing the many members of Darkness Palace to be afraid of speaking out. Once these two were dealt with, everything would be naturally resolved. "Humph, arrogant brat. Why don't you come and try and see if you can really finish the both of us off?" Icy light flickered in the eyes of the two Grand Elders when they heard this. Although they could sense that it would be troublesome to deal with Lin Dong, they did not fear him. Their reincarnation stage strength allowed them to look down on all experts. They did not believe that this little brat, who appeared to be only a little older than Qingtan, could really match them. "Is that so?" Lin Dong's mouth parted into a grin. However, ferocity emanated from this grin of his. His body moved and directly appeared in the sky. He clenched his hands and thunder clouds suddenly converged the sky. Meanwhile, frightening thunderbolts crazily gathered. The yuan power of the entire place began to fluctuate wildly at this moment. Upon seeing this, the auras of the two Grand Elders surged as mighty yuan power unfurled. A dense reincarnation ripple spread, causing one to feel a sense of dread. Great Darkness Palm. The hand seals formed by the both of them changed, followed by an explosive shout. The two attacked together. Boundless yuan power turned into two incomparably black giant palms that shattered the void and ruthlessly swatted at Lin Dong. Lightning flashed within Lin Dong's pupils as he leaped forward. Countless thunderbolts madly descended. They were accompanied by heaven's might as they smashed heavily onto the two giant darkness palm. As lightning flashed, the wild and violent thunderbolt energy directly shattered the two giant darkness palms. Swoosh! Lin Dong's body turned into a flash of lightning as it shot forward. A fist was thrown and thunder rumbled. A 10,000 feet large lightning dragon suddenly roared and shot forward. Darkness shield. The two Grand Elders sternly cried out. Yuan power frantically condensed in front of them and turned into an enormous 10,000 feet large darkness shield. Reincarnation ripples flowed over its surface. Rumble. The lightning dragon viciously battered the darkness shield. Under the dazzling glow of lightning, waves of extremely violent energy wildly eroded the shield. In a split second, the darkness shield was covered in cracks. With a final bang, the shield was completely blasted apart. Swoosh! The pupils of the two elders shrunk the moment the darkness shield exploded. This was because they saw a figure appeared in front of them in a ghost-like fashion. Purplish gold light dashed into the sky as thousands of purplish gold dragon tattoos let out a prolonged roar that resounded over the sky. Roar? Purplish gold dragon claws instantly tore through space, bringing with it a titanic shadow as it ruthlessly smashed towards the two Grand Elders whose expressions had changed. The shadow engulfed them as terrifying power directly shook space itself until it was slightly distorted. After which, the two Grand Elders cried out loudly. Both of their hands were swung and an extremely dense reincarnation ripple gathered in their palms. This caused their white gem-like luster to appear on their hands. Boom! The palms and dragon claw slammed into each other and a hurricane was formed in the sky. Everyone was overwhelmed with shock as they watched the two Grand Elders being forced back at 10,000 feet. An earth-shaking uproar erupted. Terror surged within the gazes which were looking towards Lin Dong. Who could have imagined that the latter would actually be able to gain such an obvious advantage in this 2 versus 1 situation? Just how frightening was this fellow? The expressions of the elders from the Elder Council drastically changed when they saw this scene. Unease surged out in their eyes. The two black-robed elders on the altar were also greatly shocked as they looked at each other. They would never have imagined that Palace Master's big brother was actually so powerful. Qingtan's face was flooded with joy. Looks like big brother Lin Dong had grown a lot stronger over the past 3 years. In the sky, Lin Dong wore an unsympathetic expression as he looked at the two Grand Elders, who had been pushed back. The strength of these two were merely at the ordinary reincarnation stage. In terms of strength, they were inferior to the 3 great heads of Yuan Gate that had merged into the cosmic evil Devil King. Given his current strength, taking care of them was not too troublesome. Lin Dong extended his hand towards the two in the distance and lightly closed it. Ch. As his hand closed, the space around the two Grand Elders immediately distorted as 4 giant black vortexes appeared out of nowhere. Buzz! The black holes suddenly started to rotate as terrifying devouring power erupted, creating a frightening tearing force. Even space itself was forcefully ripped to shreds. The two Grand Elders also realized just how frightening the tearing force was. They hurriedly unleashed their full strength and frantically blocked the invading tearing force. After which, their faces flushed red. With a loud cry, they finally broke out from the black hole prison. Rumble. However, a thunderous sound appeared the moment they had charged out from the black hole prison. Dazzling light seemed to fill the entire area as a 10,000 feet large thunderbolt-like pillar descended like the light of judgment. In the end, it ruthlessly slammed onto the two figures with lightning speed. Boom! Black smoke rose from the two black figures as they fell from the sky. They ultimately landed on Darkness Square in front of countless pairs of stunned eyes, creating a 10,000 feet deep pit on its incomparably hard surface. Two miserable figures painstakingly stood up in the pit. Their bodies staggered as a mouthful of blood was involuntarily spat out. The elders of the Elder Council almost fainted when they saw this scene. Horror frantically rose in their hearts. Their strongest trump card was actually defeated in such a manner? A loud hubbub erupted from the entire Darkness Square at this moment. The leaders of the various factions of the northern Xian region were dumbstruck as they watched this scene, while intense shock rose on their faces. Only a short period of time had passed, yet the two reincarnation stage Grand Elders had already been defeated? How is this possible? This sentence was repeated in the hearts of countless people. Many shocked eyes looked to the lightning godlike Lin Dong amidst the thunderbolt backdrop in the sky. Just who on earth was he? Where had he popped out from? To think that he had reached such a frightening level. In the sky, Lin Dong looked at the two people in the huge pit with an indifferent expression as he said in a faint voice, "Am I now qualified to repeat the words I said earlier?" This time, the entire place was completely silent. Even the elders from the Elder Council had sealed their mouths shut. Other than the elders who most fiercely opposed Qingtan, the eyes of the others flickered with thought. This big brother of Qingtan, who had appeared from nowhere, clearly possessed an extremely terrifying strength. If they offended him, it was likely that no one here would be able to stop him. Atop the altar, joy was revealed in the eyes of the experts from Darkness Judgment Hall. The two Grand Elders were the trump card of the Elder Council. If even they were of no use, it was likely that the Elder Council would no longer dare to fight against Palace Master. The two Grand Elders within the deep pit spat out a mouthful of blood. Their elderly faces had become much paler. It was clear that they had suffered rather serious injuries due to Lin Dong's ferocious attack. "You?" The two Grand Elders gritted their teeth and looked at Qingtan on the altar as they sternly said, "This is an internal affair of our Darkness Palace. Yet, you involved an outsider for your own ends. How can anyone accept you as the Palace Master?" Qingtan smiled when she heard this and replied, "Grand Elders, these words are indeed well spoken. However, when you have tried to suppress me earlier, did any of you remember your status? Your seniority is even higher than my master. Yet, just look at your earlier actions." Qingtan was no longer the pampered little girl from back then. Her sharp words not only caused the expressions of the two Grand Elders to pale, but even the various leaders in the square, who had remained neutral, to quietly nod their heads. These two did not know the meaning of shame when they made use of their age to bully others earlier. However, they immediately brought up this matter the moment they suffered a loss. Did they really think that everyone present was a blind fool? I originally could not be bothered with the affairs of your Darkness Palace. However, Qingtan is first my little sister before she is the Palace Master of your Darkness Palace. Since you people bullied her, as her big brother, I will naturally stand up for her. I'm afraid that the matter today will not be resolved so easily." Lin Dong's eyes were stern and cold as he stared at the two Grand Elders. His flat voice surged with killing intent. Lin Dong's words clearly indicated that he would not let the matter rest so easily today. This made the expressions of the two Grand Elders change. After having exchanged blows with Lin Dong previously, they could now tell just how powerful the latter was. If they were to directly clash against him, even the both of them combined would not be his match. The elders from the Elder Council also had pale expressions. If the two Grand Elders were dealt with today, they would lose their greatest backer. Just the thought of Qingtan's methods made them shudder. "You should not be too arrogant. Do you really think that it is so easy to bully our Darkness Palace?" The two Grand Elders shouted. Lin Dong looked at the both of them in an indifferent manner and ceased speaking. However, thunder clouds began to gather in the sky as berserk thunderbolt energy swiftly agglomerated. "You?" Savage expressions flashed across the eyes of the Grand Elders after seeing that Lin Dong was unmoved. Soon after, the Grand Elders faced each other, before they gritted their teeth and cried out, "All right, you asked for it. Do you really think that the both of us have no way to deal with you?" One of them extended his hand the moment their words faded. Light gathered on his palm and transformed into a black bead the size of a longan. The bead was covered in numerous complex inscriptions. Surprise flashed across Lin Dong's eyes when he saw this scene. He could detect an extremely unusual ripple from the black bead. The black bead slowly rose from his outstretched palm as the savageness within the eyes of the two Grand Elders became even more intense. Finally, they bit the tip of their tongue. A mouthful of essence blood shot out and landed onto the black bead. "We respectfully invite the ancestor's spirit." The two of them cried out in unison. Rays of black light exploded from the black bead. The black light gradually gathered together and transformed into an illusory light figure. The light figure was tall and had a face akin to jade. However, there was little intelligence in those eyes. However, this did not stop the frightening fluctuation that emanated from within his body. This ripple was something that even the two reincarnation stage Grand Elders could not be compared to. The strength of this light figure had already reached the peak of someone who had crossed the first reincarnation tribulation. Lin Dong's expression turned a little grim at this moment as alarm flashed across his eyes. This darkness palace did have some hidden techniques. No wonder it had been able to protect the darkness ancestral symbol. Ancestor's spirit? Many exclamations erupted from Darkness Square following the appearance of the figure. The light figure was surprisingly the first palace master of Darkness Palace. How could this happen? How could they have summoned Ancestor's spirit? The two black-robed elders exclaimed as astonishment filled their eyes. Buzz buzz. Atop the altar, the Darkness Saint Scythe in Qingtan's hand shook violently the moment the light figure appeared, causing her expression to change. She could feel that the Darkness Saint Scythe seemed to have an intimate connection with the light figure. Qingtan's small hands tightly grabbed the Darkness Saint Scythe as the expression in her eyes fluctuated. Moments later, she seemed to have suddenly understood something and exclaimed, "This is the Darkness Saint Scythe spirit." The expressions of the two grand elders changed upon hearing Qingtan's exclamation. So that's it, no wonder Master never mentioned anything about the Darkness Saint Scythe spirit. It turns out that someone secretly stole the Scythe spirit. How bold of you to hide the sacred spirit. This is a great sin to my Darkness Palace, so great that it is sufficient to strip both of you of your positions as grand elders. Qingtan's pretty face was frosty as she coldly cried out. A commotion erupted within Darkness Square. Many of the Darkness Palace upper echelons revealed shocked expressions. The Scythe spirit of the Darkness Saint Scythe had actually been stolen by the two grand elders. No wonder they dared to confidently say that the Darkness Saint Scythe was incomplete. Humph, this is not a place where you can utter such nonsense. A cold glint flashed in the eyes of the two grand elders as they sent out a thought. In a flash, the light figure appeared in front of Lin Dong. After which, bright light surged. It was accompanied by an astonishing power as it swept towards Lin Dong. While the light figure was holding Lin Dong back, those two grand elders charged towards Qingtan in a phantom-like manner. From the looks of it, they were planning on capturing the latter. At that time, Lin Dong would have to proceed with caution. Humph. A cold glint flashed across Qingtan's eyes when she saw the two grand elders charging towards her. Her small hands grasped the Darkness Saint Scythe tightly as the ancient symbol on her brow became increasingly clear. After which, the scythe was swung with a swoosh sound and darkness seemed to engulf the entire place for an instant. Clang! One of the grand elders arrived and mighty Yuan power surged. Reincarnation ripples emanated from his palm as it clashed against the sharp scythe. Sparks flew and a distorted feeling emerged in the surrounding area. After which, Qingtan and the grand elder were forced a dozen steps back. However, before she could stabilize the fluctuations in her body, another figure shot towards her and the other grand elder launched his ferocious attack. A cold glint flickered within Qingtan's eyes when she saw this. Just as she was about to attack again, a beautiful white figure suddenly appeared in front of her. A long sword seemed to hum as it thrust forward. After which, an inconspicuous sword glow shot out and collided head-on with the Grand Elder's attack. Swish! The sword glow shot past and blood splattered. The Grand Elder let out a miserable cry as his body catapulted backwards in a miserable fashion. Blood dripped from his hand. After which, his furious gaze shifted over and saw a beautiful figure in a white dress silently standing in front of Qingtan. Blood dripped from the 3-feet-long sword in her hand. The person who had attacked was naturally Ling Qingshu, who had hidden herself by the side. This sudden and unexpected change caused many surprised pairs of eyes to look over. Amazement rose in their eyes when they saw the beautiful figure in white. At this moment, all the experts from Darkness Judgment Hall finally recovered. They hurriedly clustered around Qingtan to protect her. Qingtan was likewise surprised as she looked at Ling Qingshu, who had appeared beside her. The latter's demeanor and the beautiful outline under her veil caused her to be slightly stunned. Subsequently, she glanced at Lin Dong in the sky. Her small mouth pouted slightly as she looked at Ling Qingshu again asked, "Who are you?" Ling Qingshu was also slightly startled. Soon after, she replied, "I am known as Ling Qingshu." Qingtan stared at her and muttered, "Could you be big brother Lin Dong's?" Although she did not finish her words, Ling Qingzhu naturally understood what she was trying to ask. Despite her aloof character, her face involuntarily flushed a little at this moment. After which, she quietly shook her head. Some doubt remained on Qingtan's face. However, she did not press the matter. All she did was look at the sky in a somewhat worried manner where extremely frightening fluctuations were spreading. The strength of the ancestor's spirit was terrifying to the extreme. She did not know if Lin Dong could cope. Bang! An astonishing energy ripple swept over the sky. Lin Dong took a couple of steps back. His expression darkened when he glanced at the scene below. These two old codgers were really shameless. To think that they had actually taken advantage of this opportunity to attack Qingtan. The faces of those two grand elders twitched under Lin Dong's gaze. However, they were slightly comforted after seeing the Scythe spirit. This Scythe spirit could be considered the guardian of Darkness Palace. As long as this thing was in their hands, it was likely that Lin Dong would not be able to do anything to them. Lin Dong seemed to comprehend their thoughts, and a cold glint flitted across his pitch-black eyes. A flash of black light shot out with a wave of his sleeve and turned into a black blade-wielding figure which stood guard beside Qingtan and Ling Qingzhu. With the protection of the sky-devouring corpse, these two old codgers would not dare to launch another sneak attack. Do you really think that this thing can protect you? Lin Dong slowly lifted his eyes, looked at the Scythe spirit before him and smiled coldly. Just as he was about to act, Yang's voice resounded within his heart, causing him to be slightly stunned. Heh, since we are both divine object spirits, leave this little one to me. This episode ends here.